Hello everyone, and welcome to day 59 of my 100-day project. I'm working in acrylic, and bear with me as I get my video situation sorted. I'm having some software issues and I've had to switch editing software, and so it's a little bit janky in the orientation, and I don't know, I'll figure it out. But so I'm in a horizontal format for most of the video today. And what I thought I would do today, I've only got 2 days left in acrylic. So I thought what I would do is pull out some of my absolute favorite paints to use, which are the golden high flow acrylics. These are very ink-like in that they are liquid, but they're not inks. They're acrylic paint. They're just really, really fluid. And I love them. And I thought I'm going to make this abstract kind of background and see what I see. So I'm using teal, which is an opaque color, alizarin crimson, which is interesting. I haven't used it much in the past, but I've been using it more lately, which is transparent. And then nickel azo gold. I have a stash that I started to hoard when I found out that they were going to discontinue or they couldn't get the pigment anymore. So those are the only 3 colors I'm using, plus titanium white. And you saw me add a little bit of alcohol there a second ago. And what that does is when the paint is wet, it will push the pigment aside and give you these really, really cool marks. So that's what I ended up doing. And then when I looked down, I saw this little figure in the middle bottom part of the painting. And that's what I decided to build my painting around. And I wasn't really sure at first. It was kind of like they're kind of hanging out in this weird place in the painting. And I don't love that her eye is pretty much smack dab on the center line. Typically, I have the eye be the focal point when I'm doing a figural work that's got facial features. And I usually don't like to have my focal point smack dab in the center line, but you know, it is what it is. Like, that's where she showed up, so that's where she is. And I thought what I would do is have her kind of be in a landscapey type scene. And what this is so interesting about paintings and how they have a life and a mind of their own. I kept putting in like a little line to delineate her lips and her mouth. And every time I made that line, it curved up like a smile. I would go in and I would like kind of take it out and put it in again. And every single time it would curve up like a smile. And I thought that was really interesting. So after a couple of times of trying it, I was like, no, she wants to smile. So she's going to have a little bit of a smile. And as I was working, I really didn't know what to do with the background for a very, very long time. And then I was like, well, it really does look kind of landscapey. So let me go ahead and make it kind of landscapey. And it looked like water to me, like she was sort of in by a body of water and there's all these reeds behind her and stuff like that. But I couldn't figure out what to do with that big green shape in the upper right-hand corner. I was like, do I make it a flower? Do I not? I don't know. So I just ended up doing sort of this abstract kind of sky, and I just went with it. I loved using my fingers with this. I really, really love to use my fingers with high flow paint. It moves so easily because it's liquid. And then the white paint that I'm using is a medium to heavy body paint. So it adds some thickness and some volume there that gives me a nice tactile feel. And it helps me really kind of create some strong shapes when I add the white because it's opaque and it's thicker. And what I did was I used my skewer to scratch into those colors and to create the watermarks. I just dipped the end of my skewer into the white paint and kind of scratched it along the bottom. And that's what got me those highlights on the water, and I really liked that effect because I'm working on a canvas panel and it's got some texture to it. So it's not a super smooth line. That skewer is just hitting the high points, the tops of the canvas. And that was great for what I was trying to do. So now I'm just trying to figure out what to do with that sky area, adding a little bit more shadow. These three colors, it's kind of a primary in that the nickel azo gold is sort of a yellow. It's more of an orange, but I'm using it like a yellow. My teal is my blue, and then my alizarin crimson is red. So I'm able to make some greens, some like peachy colors, some pinky colors, and those come in handy when I'm adding some structure and form to her face. But it was really challenging to get some darks. And what I ended up doing was making kind of a purpley color with the teal, which isn't very dark. It's got white in it. And with the alizarin crimson, and I added a little bit of yellow to try and dark, or the nickel azo gold to try and darken it. But I couldn't get like a really, really, really dark color. And I thought about adding like a Payne's gray or something, and I could have done that, but I'm tired. I've had a really busy month. April has been a busy month. My teaching schedule has been pretty intense this month. So I just kind of worked with what I had. And I like doing that. Like there's a part of me sometimes that goes, Tracy, why do you make it so hard on yourself? Just bring in another freaking color if you want another color. And then there's a part of me that's like, well, let me see what I can learn. Let me see what I can do if I don't bring in another color. What's the darkest dark that I can make? How many different variations of blue can I make? How many shades of green? How can I get highlights? I feel like, yeah, it makes it a little more challenging for me, but that is interesting because I learned things when I do that. And so I thought I would do that with this one. And here, you can kind of see I'm like, I don't know what to do with this sky shape. I'm just making some marks. I like that kind of minty, light tealy color that's a little bit yellow, a little bit teal, a little bit white, kind of like that. I'm getting the whites of her eyes in now, which is going to help her look a little bit more alive. She looks very young to me. And so she's got kind of this little girl energy. There's a flower shape in her hair. And I was like, well, let me play that up a little bit. Maybe she's wearing a headband with a flower in it. And I really struggled with the flower because I couldn't quite get the dark that I was looking for. And so I made it lighter, and then I had to make it darker, and I couldn't really get the purple, and then what color am I doing? And I have to let it all dry in between layers or it just mushes and makes a mess. And these are high flows, which means they're really liquid, and it takes a little bit longer for them to dry than, let's say, a fluid or a heavy body. So it was taking a while for things to dry and to give me a chance to layer. And you can see my palette off to the right. I'm just using a piece of freezer paper that I folded over, and I'm reusing as many times as I can until the paint starts to flake off. So I'm just using what's around and what's next to me. Trying to build that flower shape up, get some darks in there. I'm really not sure what kind of flower shape I'm trying to create, and that's part of the problem. Is I keep adding different colors and hoping that it's going to look like how I want. And then I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with it to try and get it to look something decent. And I'm trying to get some contrast with her hair as well. And so there's a little bit of a challenge there. Trying to give her a little bit of form. So I am adding some opacity to some of her cheek and the highlight on her nose to kind of smooth out a little bit of those colors that were underneath. And then trying to get a little bit more contrast around her face. Always the dance between putting something down and responding to it, and then responding to that and responding to that, and this dance between light and dark and texture and color. I really like that shape on the left that's kind of yellowy. I really like that. And when I scratched into it, because I had some layer underneath, it's kind of that alizarin crimson color, which is really cool. I really like that. When I do a close-up here in a little bit, you'll see that. So I'm just scratching in, adding some leaves. I'm trying to bring some contrast to that flower and kind of separate it a little bit from her hair. And so I've got a greeny color. I also like that they help create a little bit of movement. They bring your focus down to her eye. That one leaf does. So I like that. And just trying to get some final touches in there. And here we go. Here's the detail. So you can kind of see some of the fuzzy edges, that background. Who knows what's back there? That flower, there's a little bit of a headband underneath there. Her little pink cheek and that little smile. Gotta say, she's pretty cute. Thanks for joining me. Take care of you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.